Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers, the Mental Health Podcast. I'm Camila.
And I'm Lizzie.
And we are bringing you another great episode. We actually had a very important power couple that their story is so strong that we had to create 2 episodes out of this.
That's right. And on this particular episode, we're going to be listening to Ed Boateng, and he's going to be discussing loss, the grieving process, and really touching on men and how men grieve, which I think is such an important topic. So I just want to touch on something, Ed, that you just brought up. Of course, if you feel comfortable discussing it. You said that your son passed.
Yes.
And I know just from knowing you personally that was sudden and tragic and absolutely horrible. And I also know that men typically don't really talk about going through hard times or talk about depression and things like that. It's kind of not the norm with men, right? Women, we're a little more vocal, you know, for having a really hard time. We talk about those things. So I feel like you can be a voice maybe for some men right now listening to this podcast that are having a hard time going through their own, you know, depression or going through their own loss. Can you touch on that?
Yes, definitely. First, yes, with men, we kind of get that, but it's really cultural for us. Those who are in the Caribbean, my mom's from Ghana, you know, my godfather and them from Jamaica. So that's kind of something you don't really talk much about. And when you do try to talk about it, they look, you know, oh, what's for dinner? You know,
They ignore it completely.
they don't know how to
They stray away, right?
internalize it and basically articulate it out to everyone. So one of the good things that I've always done is that I know that I don't know everything, and I never thought I did. So when people suggested therapy and things of that nature, I was all for it.
Were you?
Yes, because at this point in time, you know, you're standing there looking at God, saying, "What's going on? Why did this happen?" You know, I Proverbs 3:5-6. My son K, he wore this, and you know, it's lead not into your own understanding. It's kind of like that. That's basically what it says. As much as we want to try to understand what has happened, God ain't gonna tell us. He's just not going to tell us as much as we want to. And for me, you know, it's deja vu for me. I lost my very first wife, Caleb's mom, in a head-on collision in Homestead, and he was the only survivor. Years later, 12 years after that, then I meet my wife, Alicia. And here he is at just turning 21, not too far off. Now he's gone. So there's a part of me that is no longer exists in the earth itself, but I know that they're there. So I definitely choose my words very carefully when I speak to people. My delivery is not the best. My wife tells me that all the time. And I always say the delivery is one thing, but you also have to pay attention to the intent. What am I intending when I'm saying what I say? You hear it one way, but here's what I'm saying. Can you filter through that to get to what I'm saying? And that's where Caleb and I, we always were able to talk a lot about that. It was him and I for a long time. You know, give a lot of grace to my mother, to my wife, to my friends, family, everyone. This was the biggest shock to everyone. Caleb got into
it's still a shock.
School, Harvard, you know, not only just athletic, academic. Okay. And
he had over 40 offers.
With what actually happened,
schools.
You know, he was in the Cambridge program at Fort Lauderdale High School. He actually was at VSY, which was a Montessori school in Fort Lauderdale as elementary. Then he went to Sunrise, the gifted program. Then he went to Fort Lauderdale's Cambridge program. He graduated at 17. So he got to school. He actually got into Clemson University first. Clemson, we went to different schools as we went around. And, you know, we got the call late while coming back from Arizona. And the funniest thing was, you know, we were kind of texting under the foot. He's like, Papi, Clemson just said yes. So I texted him back saying, yeah, Papi, just eat that steak right now. Because, hey, congratulations, you know where you're going. And we just, you know, it was a whirlwind for us at that point in time. Moment. Yes, it definitely was. And, you know, throughout the years, you know, I'm never going to know. I always said that, you know, as good as a father I could try to be, when you don't have your mother, it's very difficult. You know, I had my mother, and my mother is very strong. And, you know, a lot of what keeps me moving is because I do look at her and see everything that she had to do. To get through everything. She had her own business, Hats by Mercy. We left Brooklyn, Manhattan with her. In Brooklyn, business was in Manhattan, but we left with my godmother, Yolanda and Blanca, and we all came to South Florida back in 84. So, you know, my mom is a very big inspiration, especially when we're looking at the different segments of how we do cups, the Black excellence, that will be there. The Latin excellence, all the things that we have kind of thought about is a representation of who we are, because Absolutely. We're going to pull from our families. We'll pull from everything that we have. And, you know, Caleb was a very intricate part in just a father-son relationship. He's the first person to make me a father. First person. And, you know, I always told him when he was younger, you know, if you ever feel alone, I'll sit with you in the dark. All of my friends know that about me. And when, you know, when they see that you're hurting and things of that nature, you know, they pray for our family all the time. They pray for us all the time. And they pray that our minds are good and as good as they're going to be. And so with that, kind of bringing it back around, the therapy is golden. I was doing therapy then. The therapist, we were in Kendall back then. The therapist passed away. Wow. So when we got to our next therapy session, the new therapist there called Caleb and I by the wrong names. So we looked at each other and laughed. And it's like, I'll be ready to go. Let's go. Right. And then we walked out. You know, they're like, oh, is anything wrong? Yeah. When you guys ask for Hernandez, they'll come, but it is not us, you know.
So you were going to therapy together? Yes.
He was doing child therapy because all of this happened when he was 6.
Wow.
5.
Oh, my God. The loss of his mom. Right?
Correct. So that's why I say it's deja vu for me. And the therapy was working then. It got stalled because of the therapist passing and everything that happened. And then now we're here. If it was working then, I'm hoping and praying to God that it works now. It's kind of like marriages, right? If you have a good marriage and something happens to get married again, maybe something you'd want to do. If you didn't have a good one, maybe you don't necessarily. Well, I had a good therapist. Therefore, looking to get another one, it's not easy. You're going to expose so much of your vulnerability.
Sure.
And that's you just really talking about how you feel, right? So now we have, you know, my mother's in therapy. Alicia and I were in therapy. She does one, I do one, we do one together. Our youngest one is in therapy. My mom is in therapy. My sister and my brother-in-law, Javon, he's in therapy. So as a family, we're all doing that. So when I speak to other men, because I deal with a lot of my frat brothers and things like that. Their support is amazing, and I know it comes from God, because they said, we love you. We're here for you. And that's because they know that, damn, how does this happen? Like, when is enough going to be enough? And that was just with the second one. Then my mother-in-law passes.
3 months, right?
Yeah.
From the time that your
February,
son
March,
passes,
April,
and
May.
then
3 months coming up. And then having to digest that. It wasn't being digested. It's just, I stay steadfast and we will figure out what we have to do. And it's unfortunate because, I've told people many a times, I've told a therapist, and I'll tell other men this as well too. I put it on Facebook a lot, is that, unfortunately, we have to grieve on the run. We grieve on the run. Sometimes you got to go in and cry, and then I have to go up there and talk to people about houses, or I have to sit in a meeting and really talk about things that are going to affect them. And we do that all the time.
And I also want to make mention the importance of resilience. They always say that, of course, women are very resilient, children are very resilient, but I think us as a married couple, we balance each other off in the sense that I may feel resilient one day and he may feel resilient one. And I have a quick story to say to that. I had been wanting to go on a local TV show for a really long time. And I'd been reaching out to the producers and nothing. They would never answer me. I mean, I would contact them through every possible platform that I could possibly can. Finally, last year, they said, yes, we'll have you on the show. And it was just in time for the Latina collection to be released. So it was perfect timing. And then everything happens with Caleb. And I had it scheduled for February 16th. And I said, there's absolutely no way that I can do this because I'm in the middle of planning everything. I have family here. There was just no way. I reached out to the producer and I explained to her and I said, listen, I've been wanting to get on the show for 3 years. And I appreciate that you guys finally responded, but is there any way that we can possibly push it back a couple of weeks just to give us a little bit of air so we can put our faces on and show up on TV? They immediately responded and said, yes, absolutely. Take your time. They were very, very accommodating. And so they pushed it back for 3 weeks. And so we had to go on that TV show with our smile on our faces. We were dying. We were literally crying minutes before. But, in the green room, we were crying, we were praying, we were asking God to please give us the strength that we need to show up on TV because this is what we've been asking for. And now he's given it to us. And now we need to prove to him that we can get through this. So we did the show. And the minutes the lights turned off, we went back to crying and we're picking up our stuff and we're literally crying. It was but that is the power of resilience, the power of knowing, the power of having God in our life. And I'm not just saying that I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but it's just that that's what's helped us. And if it can help anyone out there, just finding their faith, whatever they believe in, if they believe in the universe, then you know what? Focus your faith on the universe and just have a positive mindset and know that you're going to get through it. Mm-hmm. Know that you're going to get through it.
And for the men, we have a lot on our shoulders societally, period. So what I would say to other men is just ask God for broader shoulders. Because at the end of the day, we still have a lot of things that we have to take care of. We just have to take care of it. Family being first, but always putting God above it all. So God first, and then we begin going through what we work through.
We've certainly had our share of losses in our family, enough to last a lifetime, because after we have Kingston, which is obviously we're a blended family, and he had Caleb from his previous marriage. I have Andy and Macy from my previous marriage, and together we have Kingston, which is 8 years old right now. But after we had Kingston, a year after, I got pregnant again. And my C-section was due March 15th. And on March 5th, we lost the baby. So we literally carried him full term. He was a big baby. He was 10 pounds? 10 pounds. So that was the first start of our losses, having to go through that.
Which is awful. I just had a baby, so I can't even imagine what you went through.
It is the most painful thing in the entire world. And so, that was the first initial loss. And then, everything else that we've been through. And I always tell him that God puts us through so many challenges. God has put us through enough challenge that most marriages would never survive. Never. They would never. Just because of all the anxiety and all the emotions and everything that comes when you lose one person. Imagine having to go through everything that we've had to go through. So
I just want to say thank you so much, because everything that you have said today, your voices are just so incredibly powerful that I know that everything that you have said today is really going to touch the lives of so many people that are listening right now. I want to really reflect for a second on the fact that you were discussing how therapy has been a game changer for you.
Yes.
When you lost your first wife, it helped you and your son to go through that difficult time. And now again, therapy is what's helping you to get through the loss of your son. I would like to really suggest to anybody listening right now that maybe is having a hard time, talk therapy is amazing. Sometimes just getting it out there, listening, going to a mental health practitioner, a professional that can go and really help you to get that out and reflect and talk. And you can tell me more, but I do think that that's such a game changer, right? Having that talk therapy.
It is a very big game changer. To us, it's God's intervention. God always has his hand on us, and that's him having his hand on us, saying, listen, I'm going to direct you there. And it's a journey. It's a journey that you're not going to overcome it, but you will walk with your head higher at times. And at times it'll be a little lower, but you'll know that God is the one who's carrying you at that time.
And I want to say first, both of you, thank you for sharing your stories. I think that, believe it or not, your voice, especially coming from you, Ed, listening to your story, I was thinking about my dad. Cuban, also, he lost his sister when he was young. He lost his mother. And then reflecting in our own story, from Cuba going to Spain, then he lost his father. And within a couple of months, he lost his wife. So the father that I see is a very strong man. And I see you both. And I cannot understand, and I respect you and I admire you, because I see you standing tall. And I know that you're doing it for them. And I think that you have a voice that hopefully through the podcast, or maybe you have a higher purpose, a higher calling that you should follow, because I think men need to see the reality, coming from a cultural background or coming just from a personal. Since you were boys, you're like, men are not supposed to cry. Or talk about their feelings. But that the combination with therapy, your faith, I think that you need to hold on to anything that's going to help you keep going and make a difference, because you could have had other choices. Your marriage could have fallen down and broken down. You could have isolated yourself. You could have gone through a very, very dark route, but you chose to thrive through. So I think that you should use that and bring more light to other people's life that are going through it. Because quite frankly, when I lost my mom, I got very angry at God. And I was coming from a nun school in Spain. So faith, like Christianity was coming, is being forced into mine. But when that happened, I got angry. It's the normal grieving process. As I study psychiatry now, the grieving process, therapy, as I meet people, I see a purpose for me, which is what that we are doing right here, is opening up, being vulnerable, because believe me, there's no higher gratification than seeing that you're making a difference in someone's life. And I think you both, with what you're doing in your business, even as a realtor, you can change someone's life.
I always tell people that they ask, how are you doing? I use the word lifing because that's life, right?
He even made shirts.
I made a shirt that said, how are you doing? Life. Because people always, when people see, when people know us and they see us, when they look at you, it's like, it's
like they don't know how to
we're
approach
feeling
us.
for you, right?
They don't know how to approach us.
I always let them know, so how are you doing? And I've done this from the beginning. It's not one day at a time for me. That was the last time. It's 1 hour at a time. Literally. And keeping my list. I'm a list person. So as I can get my things off, because my mind has to move onto what my list is doing. And the first thing on my list and the last thing on my list is thank God. And the last thing on the list is to God be the glory. I have had that for easily 20 years now.
Wow.
So that's what I definitely have to say to those who are listening today, and especially men, that there's help there. And
there's no shame.
You have to.
There's no shame in going to
shot.
get cut. Yeah. There's no shame. You're not less of a person because you're seeking help.
And it's okay if a medication is needed or not. We just need to find those healthy coping mechanisms, because at some point you mentioned something that it made me think that maybe you were disassociating yourself from your own body. Like you just separate yourself so you don't feel the pain, maybe, or even you repress those feelings for whatever reason. But I think everybody, men and women, we need to go through it. We need to be able to feel the pain.
That's why I say grieving on the run. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. Anyone who has lost someone, there's times things may trigger you, and you're in the middle of doing certain things. You're on the run at that point in time. Something you got to go to. I've done it many times. I've pulled over at Wawa, at racetrack, in the office, and have to just literally in the car cry, wash my face, and I have to. All right, God, let's go. And now I have to get back to it. And now after that, then I'm able to break down a little bit more and get myself back to But our son, Kingston, the kids, my mom, my wife, I do focus in on that as well. For everyone, men and women, there's a piece that you have to continue to work to find, and sometimes you get it and then it goes away. And then when it goes away, you have to sit back and ask God to just continue to guide you.
Yeah. Right. I always say that, God, please guide me. No, shit certainly does. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for sharing so much information, important information that's really going to help so many people listening right now. Your voices are so powerful. And I mean that literally because you've got that deep voice. But and figuratively, I mean, you guys are just so uplifting, and despite everything, the challenges that you have faced, to get up every single day, move forward, put your best face, right? Your best foot forward, and you keep going, and you're working hard at your business, and you're wildly successful at your branding business, at your mug business, at your real estate. I mean, it's like, my God, you're an amazing.
We do insurance too as well.
Oh, insurance too. I mean, you're just this incredible power couple, and I know that my takeaway, because we love to give a takeaway for everybody listening, but me personally, I thought I was a person of faith. Clearly, I need to step up my game, because I see everything that you have been through, and still every single day you're so grateful. And I feel like you've taught me I need to be more grateful. I need to really start my day every day, thank you, God, and end every day with thank you, God. So thank you for teaching me personally. I know you two as well. We're a hot mess right now, but it's okay. But honestly, I just think your message is incredible, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And for me, I think I'm going to try to be the best psychiatry, mental health nurse practitioner that I can. And hopefully I can help guide people, amazing people like you and others, even myself, my friends, my family, to make it, just to go through, to click, to help, and I don't know, make a difference in someone's life, which I think that you guys are making a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you again for those of you that tuned in to today's episode with Ed Boateng, as he discussed grieving, loss, particularly how men grieve, which is something that you don't typically hear about, because men don't talk about their feelings, about their emotions quite as much as we do, right? Yes. And I know that it was a very heavy topic, and you probably felt it and you grieved through it, just like we did when we were listening to that story. And because you lost your mom at a very young age, I lost my father. So it really did touch us personally. It resonated really, really well. It brought those memories back. And it's not easy. Even after years have passed by, we're still dealing with that loss, because that person is not here anymore. And we just keep on living, like he said. And it's interesting how when you're grieving loss, right, you have those stages of grief. You have denial, you have anger, you have that bargaining. If I would have done this, maybe that person would still be around. You have depression and then acceptance. Personally, I know that I didn't accept my father's passing until a year later. I remember being at work, and I got a phone call. I picked up the phone, and I said to myself, oh my God, I will never, ever again hear my father's voice. It was at that moment, a year later, that I actually accepted his passing. Yeah. For me, I guess I need a little bit of more closure, because I remember when my grandfather died, I saw him, I saw his body. So I made peace with it. But for my mom, I refused to see her. And I regret that. That's my only thing, because for me, it would have felt even more real when you see it. Okay, this is the reality. And then that would have helped me to move on maybe sooner. Yeah. I know, it's incredible. And we grieve, for those of you that are dealing with grief right now, that are dealing with loss, first of all, Ed mentioned two things that I think are so incredibly important. He talked about therapy. See someone, go to a mental health practitioner, professional that can help you get through this. Or through your community, through your family and friends. That can be your biggest support. And I know that we said that we will be leaving different resources, community resources, on the description box on the bottom. And the other thing was, he touched on faith. Yes. Yeah. For me, I got angry. I got it first. Now I'm, making it up for it. I'm getting my relationship with him back. But at the moment, of course, the first thing is you get angry, and then you go through that grieving process until you find comfort in him again. Thank you guys again for having joined us on another episode of Breaking Barriers, the Mental Health Podcast. Please Please follow us on social media, engage with us, tell us, give us your feedback. Our social media on Instagram is Breaking Barriers, the Mental Health Podcast. And we want to thank you, and please tune in for next time.
Until next time.